Good morning. I'm Bob Kiefer. I'm a senior consultant with the Special District Association of Oregon, and I've been asked to provide a presentation on succession planning for your staff. I look forward to sharing some information that I've gathered over the last several years and also through my nearly 40 years as a Parks and Recreation Executive Manager. So hope that you find this presentation informative. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me after the presentation and certainly help answer any of your questions. And I'd like to also thank you, uh, Rebecca Carroll, for assisting me today, and she'll be managing the slides as we move ahead. So let's get started. So one of the things that, if we could go to the next slide, I'm sorry, Rebecca. So one of the things that I've learned over time is to do a little bit of research on things and see what else I can learn from others. And when I was first doing a presentation of this sort on succession planning, not only for staff but for boards, I came across this quote, and it says, "Never plan for the future with people who don't have future plans." It really struck me as I was looking at succession planning and thinking about, that's what this is really about. How do we get prepared for the future? Utilizing the people that we already have in place and training them up, and not just trying to stay where we're at today. So I really find this a profound statement, and one I think that if you, as you enter this process, will keep in mind, look for people that really want to deal with the future. Next slide, please. So before we get too far into any process for succession planning, let's talk about what is succession planning. Um, Again, doing that research prior to former presentation, I came across this definition from Patrick Ibarra, a former city manager from the Midwest, and was very successful. And now he's a public sector consultant, doing a lot of planning, both from succession planning, but strategic planning, financial planning for cities and counties throughout the nation. And he provided this definition, which I think is one of the best that I've seen. Succession planning is an ongoing process, and I want to stress ongoing. It's not something we just do once, it's something we would continue to do if we decide to go down this road. So it's an ongoing process of identifying, assessing, and developing talent, that being the people that work for us, to ensure leadership, management, and supervisory continuity throughout an organization, and moreover, to sustain its performance. Probably in my short definition here would be, this is about really taking the time to develop our staff so that we can continue to provide outstanding service to our communities that they deserve and want. This is just one of those tools in our toolbox that could help us meet that goal. Next slide, please. Not only do we want to know what succession planning is, but why is it important? You may have to justify um, the moving in this direction with succession planning process. So here are some things that I've learned over my years, and felt like, gosh, this would be really important to know and to help justify moving ahead. First of all, succession planning ensures that the key roles are filled quickly and effectively, avoiding service disruptions. Keeping in mind that, again, you're going to hear this from me a lot about avoiding service disruptions because it's all about the service we do provide our public, and that's what they expect. And we'll be coming back to that once or twice here as we talk about these key points. The second item is knowledge retention. This process helps us capture the institutional knowledge before it's lost with departing staff. How many of us have people that work for us for years and years and years and know our systems inside and out? They know maybe where the skeletons are buried. They may know where the best opportunity is for success. but it's all held within them. They haven't ever had to write it down. They haven't had to share it with anybody. And this is something that would, as part of the process, we would take care of and hopefully gather as much information from them as possible. Thirdly is workforce stability. Um, and this is really planning ahead for that turnover to minimize that impact, especially in our smaller and mid-sized agency where we find these people that are going to be leaving on. We got such a big gap. We can't provide the services we were providing for before. But also, as the second part of this bullet is staff morale, and it helps boost staff morale by showing that there's a path forward for them to grow with the organization. So as we look at these things, workforce stability is a really important part of why this is important. And in alignment with that is leadership development. This succession planning helps us build a pipeline of future leaders. And this is probably more important in our bigger organizations where we have we have different levels of management below the executive director, where they feel like they can learn and take on more responsibility, and at the same time they are an asset for us because they will be able to maintain that agency's mission and your culture, and hopefully create a sense of ownership in the organization. So very important here as well. Next slide, please. Public accountability. I think this is probably different than for private sectors going through succession planning. We all have our audience, we all have our customers, but in a public setting, um, our public wants to know that those services are not going to be interrupted just because we're going through a management change. Uh, they're about making sure that, in my world, that our parks were accessible and programs were there, or in the fire service that that truck or that ambulance is getting out the door in a timely fashion, or water, or any of those where we're providing services that they want to make sure it's uninterrupted. And one way of doing that is making sure we're bringing staff up that understand the entire operation and understand the role of that position. So keep that in mind as well, why succession planning matters. One that sometimes we do not think about is the regulatory and legal compliance that many of our agencies and districts must deal with. And there are people who, within our organizations, they are the key providers of that service. It may be the reporting that we have to do to the state and federal government, for instance, dealing with environmental regulations or public safety or staff safety, and they know all those issues that are involved with that. So being able to make sure that we continue to comply with those regulations is another important aspect of why we want to do succession planning. And one that probably all of us in today's budget world, it's cost effective. Internal development reduces the cost of recruitment, bringing somebody on, the additional training and movement to your organization, much less costly than bringing in somebody new. It's faster, it's better for the organization. And lastly, strategic alignment. This helps us develop those leaders both from a technical standpoint, but also those that are already aligned with the agency's mission and long-term goals. It really assists us in, again, a transparent transition in management that staff and the public would support. Bottom line, succession planning isn't just a good practice. It's a critical strategy for ensuring that we continue to do our jobs as a public service. And it also assists us in building an agency that is resilient, efficient, and responsive, even during those times of change. Uh, so let's all keep that in mind as we continue to move ahead with why succession planning is important. And I have one more slide that I want to share, just a couple more practical thoughts with you. Next slide. So when I was looking at this information a couple years ago, there was a couple surveys I felt were real important to share with you. And this first bullet talks about that 41% of workers say they plan to look for a new job. That's close to being half. Could you imagine losing 41% of your staff just because they were looking for a job in a different organization because they could do better and they left, and it wasn't because of anything else in the organization? Uh, Succession planning can be a tool to help them to look for positions within your organization. The second study was one from the Executive Perspectives on Top Risk report. And what it really says is that succession challenges and the ability to attract and retain top talent jump from being the eighth greatest risk to that organization to being the second greatest risk to an organization. That's really talking about how do we operate efficiently and effectively and provide the services we want. And it's really become during this period since COVID and even prior, a real big risk for many organizations. Um, I think in the last bullet, just very quickly, is really my observation that I think that we've really focused a lot on hiring processes and really doing a good job of recruiting and spending money on that end, but we haven't done a lot of effort in retaining employees. And I think it's important in today's world where we see so many people changing jobs, looking to go elsewhere, that we really consider how do we bring people up in the organization so that we can be more effective in the long run of providing public services to our communities. Next slide. As I was working on this presentation, I just wanted to share with you some um, keys to develop and implementing a succession plan if that's where you want to go now that you understand hopefully a little bit about why it's important, what it is. And first and foremost in this today, I think we have to be very transparent in what we do and very intentional in what we do. And what I really mean about that is communicating to our staff and to our board about this process and why it's important and how you're going to do it and what's going to be involved in that. Um, Keeping people informed of where you're at in the process, when you expect to be done, what positions you may evaluate, all those things, being upfront about that in the very uh, first steps in the process. And with that, when you're sharing that information, I don't know that you can be successful without having the full support of leadership. That being your management team, those that work directly under you, if you're a district manager, um, or or the board should be in full support of this. In fact, many times I've seen where the board has wanted to have a succession plan and staff weren't interested in that. So maybe that's not such a hard sell, but it's something that we should be looking for full support. And why do we need that full support of leadership? Because it's going to take resources to do this work, and not just financial resources, but time and training, possibly mentorship, are all things that will have to take place, which take away maybe from the day-to-day operations of your organization. And so to be able to utilize those resources and for this process, it needs to take, it has to be in full support of leadership. Next slide. So next in this presentation, I want to go over an abbreviated process for doing succession planning. And it's just a basic framework, but has some very key steps that will help you through that process and set you on your way to completing a succession plan. With that in mind, some of this will be too general maybe for a larger organization, and they'll need some additional details on and additional steps. And I would be certainly willing to discuss those with you at some other point. But as I was looking at this for the majority of our uh, agencies, districts, they're small to medium size. So this is an abbreviated process that I hope provides a basic framework for you to be able to proceed. Next. Our advice from day one um, is to complete an operational assessment of your district as part of this process. And I would say, as we have talked many times before, doing an operational assessment is good for your district if you're doing strategic planning or you're even hiring a new district manager. It isn't, and you're not doing a succession planning process. Just understanding what gaps you have in your operation, not just gaps, but what you're doing well too. And so in these key assessment topic areas that are listed here on this slide, everything from what's the status of key policies and procedures to what are the key issues facing your district now and near future, the financial condition of your district. Do you have a strategic plan or agency goals, and where are you with that? What's the opinion of the community of the district, both the board and the day-to-day operations of the district? Are you following best practices, um, and what are those? Sometimes people don't think about this, and I think it's important is assessing what's going on in your community that are top of mind. And the reason we do these assessments is to help understand what is the talent and what are the skill sets that we need in our staff to help improve our operation as an agency. So keep that in mind. This really needs to be step one of the succession planning process. Next slide, please. So we're going to move now to lining out several steps to complete succession planning process. I've already talked about step one, complete the operational assessment. Uh, Step two will be identify critical positions in the organization. For example, who are the key leaders who have significant experience in the organization? Special knowledge about not only the district but the community, what skills that they have that maybe others don't have in the organization. So you have to look and for instance, there may be only 3 or 4 people that fit this criteria, but really understanding what would happen if they left the organization tomorrow. What information would they have that would be beneficial to assure that we have seamless operations when they leave. So gathering that information, we're going to talk about in a little bit, but knowing who are those key folks that we would need to um, have additional information about and what they're doing in their job. Um, and once we identify those, then we can move on to our next step, which is to identify of those people, well, what positions will be vacated within the next 5 years and the time frame for each one of those positions. Sometimes we'll be starting this process and we find that someone's not going to be leaving within that 5 year period, but other times we might find, oh, they're planning on leaving in 6 months. Does that really give us enough time to develop someone within the organization to take on that position? Um, so I just want you to take this step and say, okay, let's have that discussion with those folks we have identified where we feel like it's going to be really hard to fill that position without having more information about what they do and how they do it and what's most important and all those things. And then we need to find out, well, when do they plan to leave the organization? Because that will inform our decision about how much training are we going to need to do, mentorships, all these type of things. So keep that in mind. Step three, identify what positions will be vacated within the next 5 years. Next slide. Step 4, review and revise as necessary the job description for each of those identified positions. And really, the purpose of this is, have things changed over time? Have you already kept that up to date? And if not, what needs to happen to identify changes in the work that they have been doing um, compared to what's in the job description? What is there a certification that that wasn't required when they began the position, but is required today? Any of those type of things that will help you better understand the qualities and of the next person filling that position. And as you're doing that, you might want to consider compensation analysis of each of those positions, mostly because you want that position to be competitive in the workplace. And if somebody was looking at that position within the organization that was well qualified, but there's not enough change in compensation to really make it worthwhile for them to take on added responsibilities, you'd want to know that up front. So make sure that you take it if you have the time to do a compensation analysis as well. Step 5 is identify the key attributes or skill set needed for each position. Remember the operational assessment that we talked about first off. This is where you really need to find out what is needed in that. Let's say this is the district manager and what is needed to be successful in that position. Maybe you find that, gosh, we're really good at strategic planning. That manager and that team has done a really good, but you know what? We haven't been paying attention to our budget as much as we should. And we really need to understand where we're going to be going over the next 5 or 10 years and be able to really work toward that. And if that's something that's different than what is in the current position, the person in that current position, that should be identified and make sure that there's training available and um, allow and that they are capable of doing those things. So it's important to do the operational assessment to help you identify uh, the key attributes or skill set needed for the position. Step 6, after we have sort of identified the positions or the leaders that are leaving and that we need to plan for that exit from the organization, and we've identified you know uh, any change to their job description or special attributes we want. Now it's time to look at internally and say, who are those potential internal candidates for those positions? Um, you identify those people, then you need to assess their ability to do the job. Look at their overall work resume, what they're doing within the organization, what does staff and the board think of them, and what is it that they do that shows you that they have the aptitude to take on a different role. Talk to them about what's important to them. Is this something that they'd even want? So assess that ability to do the job. Um, and then once you've done that, you need to really look at how do you prepare that candidate for the position? What training will they need? What experiences will they need within the organization? Uh, is there an opportunity to work as an interim manager at that position or acting in capacity for a longer term to where they have a trial period to see if they're up to the task of taking on that position? But you need to be able to make sure they have the resources to be successful. And some of that is training. Some of that is providing additional experiences that they don't normally have in their regular position. Could be mentoring. So take a look at that. Step 6 is very, very important. And if at the end of the day, you look at your candidates within the organization and there's no one really qualified or wanting to take that position, then let's go to the transfer portal. Really, it is just like the recent college sports. You see these athletes going to team, and somebody's trying to grab somebody from another team. Well, there's nothing really wrong with that here in looking for potential candidates to fulfill what you need in the organization. And if you could bring them on a little bit earlier, and they can gain from getting to know the district, getting to know how things work, that's important for them to be successful. You can really look at this as an opportunity uh, to fulfill your job uh, early without waiting and having to wait for the, let's say, for instance, the finance manager or the district manager to leave, and you don't have anybody to fill that role um, internally at that point, and you have to go out. So this is a good opportunity to look at seeing how you can gain an employee for your organization. And most of the time, these are going to be people that you would see as highly talented already. You network with folks, and you know who those all stars are. And this is an opportunity to assist your district in the succession planning, even if it's not internal. That's not what this is all about here, because that's more of a recruitment thing. But I think that if you can do it early before your key leader leaves, that this would be really helpful. Next slide. Step 7 is where we want to really talk about how to capture and transfer knowledge to that new appointee. Who's that person that's going to take over in that role? And part of that is part of these bullet points is really before that leader leaves. Let's get some things out of that person to assist us in being successful with the new appointee. One could be like, for instance, work manuals. I was working with a district one time, and they had a long-term office manager, and there was all sorts of systems that she had, but nothing was written down. How do we do payroll? How do we do updates to our phone system? How do we handle customer complaints? So anything that we could write down about our processes and procedures is would be a real benefit to the new appointee. If that district manager or finance manager or uh, uh, additional leader in your organization is leaving, and they're in charge of a whole part of the organization, uh, having them write a briefing memo about key processes and procedures and how they do it, what they see on the horizon as short and long-term issues that need to be addressed, along with the opportunities that could be taken advantage of in the future. But for them to write that down in a short briefing memo would be very helpful to the new appointee. Let's say you're not able to get the leader to develop a briefing meeting memo. You as a leader should ask to meet with them and cover those same things with them in a meeting, and you take the notes and make sure that those are passed on to the new appointee. Other things that you already have in place, and make sure they're available to uh, uh, those new managers or those new leaders. Include any of the planning documents that you already have in place that are relevant to their position, any community surveys or other staff surveys, anything that informs them about district operations, including board minutes. Now, board minutes are probably already on your website and handily available to them, uh, but making sure those things are all there to help uh, them develop a good foundation of information to understand where the district is in operating your services. Um, they have been part of that during this process, during their time there, but being very intentional and ensuring that those things are really available in a easily format, easily available um, from your computer system, wherever you keep those, I think is real important. And the last point here is that when that new appointee comes on, uh, I think it's really wise to have them and make accessible to them, the staff and the board and maybe other key stakeholders, uh, to let them visit with them and talk about, what's going well, what can we improve upon in my position, how can I better do the job, uh, and what issues or opportunities can we expect in the near future. Doing all that builds a strong foundation for that employee to be successful. It provides as much information to them as possible so that they can start making wise decisions and supporting their staff as they move ahead in the position of leadership. Next slide. Okay, so now we're at step 8, implement the process. This means we have already gone through the organizational assessment. We have identified key leaders that we really need to retain that knowledge from and know what's going on from them. We have identified people that may be able to fill those positions. We have looked at training and we've looked at mentorship. We've looked at providing opportunities for more experiences. We've determined, a time frame for all this to happen, and now it's just time to implement the process. And again, I would come back to your staff and to your board to let them know that we are going to begin all those initiatives to ensure that we have succession plan and process that will meet the needs of our organization. Uh, I would have one cautionary recommendation for you as you implement this process. And again, it goes back to one of the first slides about being transparent, and that is to make sure all employees know that no one is guaranteed a promotion through this process. It may be as we do the assessments that we're doing during this time that there is not a good fit for an employee to move up within the organization into one of these identified key roles that we have within the district. There's also the other point for us to all think about as leaders is that maybe those employees don't really want or do not feel like they're qualified to do that position or want to just stay where they're at. So just understand that this is not fail proof and that as you go through this, it'll be a dynamic experience where all of you will learn more about the district and know more about your employees and know more about what's going to be needed in the future to assure that you provide outstanding public service to your community. Next slide. And with that, I've tried to cover a lot of territory in a very short amount of time. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me at bkiefer@sdo.com or call the 1-800 number on the screen. And staff from SDO will reach out to me and I'll be in contact with you if you have any further questions of any type. So thank you for attending. Thank you, Rebecca, for handling the slides. And I wish you all well in your planning process. Thank you very much.